Hi everyone, you are Reddit expose there, enjoy watching.
Here is my story in the first person. The Los Angeles sun beat hard against my window, made me squint. Out of nowhere, Caitlin Iax came back to me like an old song on the radio. It's been 5 years since we broke up, 5 years full of changes and new faces, and yet she still shows up at the most random moments, like a stubborn melody. We met at a party in West Hollywood. I was an aspiring musician, she was an ambitious actress. LA, the city of dreams, where every second person is a star in waiting. Our romance was quick and bright, a burst of fireworks, passion, ambition, late night talks about the future. Back then, it all felt unshakable. Reality hit. Audition rejections, creative blocks, constant competition. We started snapping at each other, blaming each other for everything that didn't work. She grew more demanding and driven. I withdrew and got bitter. One morning, after another fight, she left no note, no goodbye. I saw her a few times after that, in magazines, bit parts in TV shows, at campaigns. She did what she set out to do. Maybe that's why we broke. We wanted different things and moved in different directions. And although her face still pops up in my mind now and then, I know it's just an echo from another time. I leaned back in my chair and tried to push the memories away. LA. Keep secrets, but it's even better at dragging them back when you least expect it. Outside, life rushed along Sunset. Tourists posed with the Hollywood sign. Buskers fought the city nose. It all felt so far from what was going on inside me. After we split, I was a mess. I tried to drown the grief in alcohol, in new faces, in work. None of it helped. Caitlin left a deep mark, and healing took time. I bounced between jobs, moved neighborhoods, started working out. Slowly the pain dulled, the memories faded. Looking back now, I see how young and naive we were. We believed in the Hollywood fairy tale, instant success, forever love. Reality was rougher. Maybe we just weren't meant to be. Then the phone rang. An unfamiliar name. I picked up. A lawyer told me I needed to appear as a witness in a case connected to one of my old projects. My heart skipped. West Hollywood was calling again. Going to court was a trip into the past. Familiar streets and faces, all a little older and more tired. The questions were sharp, digging for the mess behind that project. I answered honestly, without dragging anyone down. Afterward, an old friend one had started out with came up. We traded stories of wins and losses. I heard the same weariness in his voice that I'd been hearing in mine. Back home, I felt empty. The hearing reopened old wounds and made me tally up what it actually done with my life. LA was still the city of dreams, but now I knew dreams can lie, and happiness hides in unexpected places. That night I pulled out a box of photos. In one, we're all young and fearless in front of a half-built studio, bright eyes, real smiles. Where did that certainty go? I realized this wasn't about Los Angeles or false dreams. It was about me. It let the hustle and the chase for quick wins bury what mattered: friendship, love, honesty. I traded my principles for easy money and small power. Court became a catharsis. It forced me to look in the mirror at someone I barely recognized. I had a chance to fix it. I started small. I called an old friend I'd fallen out with over nothing. We talked, apologized. By the end I felt lighter. A long road lay ahead, the road back to my values. That night I stood at the window and looked over LA, lit up like a set. I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I knew it would be hard, and I was ready. The first step was admitting it'd fallen. I made calls, apologized, no excuses. I didn't expect to be forgiven. I wanted people to know I understood what I'd done. The night was full of restless thoughts, but my resolve grew. In the morning, I woke up different, no grand transformation, just a clearer heart. I left Los Angeles for a while. I drove through small towns, talked to ordinary people, helped where I could. Under the stars, I wrote letters to those I'd hurt and sent confessions that still eased the weight. Time didn't erase the scars, but it stopped the bleeding. One dawn in a mountain cabin, I felt ready to return and face the consequences. Coming back felt like climbing a steep hill. I went to my mother first. Her silence held forgiveness, broke me and healed me at the same time. Others were mixed, some turned away. Some listened, some cursed. In every meeting there was still a flicker of hope. I worked to make amends, quietly, consistently. The nights were the hardest memories, cutting through the dark. I prayed for strength and kept moving. Little by little, kindness met me halfway. I learned to live with my scars. They became reminders that I survived and changed. Redemption wasn't a moment, it was a practice. With it came a new kind of freedom. Sometimes I'd stop by a playground and watch kids laugh, and it hurt the sense of something lost. But I stood there and let the pain pass through. I began telling the truth about who had been and who I was trying to be. The nightmares still came, but they didn't own me. On a mountaintop one day, I felt the burden finally lift. I forgave myself. I was free. Back in the city, I opened my heart to love, to friendship, to compassion. I tried to be useful, to share what I'd learned, to support anyone who needed it. I found my place. The past stayed with me as a reminder, not a torment. I've come to believe happiness isn't the absence of pain, it's seeing the beauty in small moments, loving and being loved, giving your light away so others can see. Life isn't a straight highway, it's a rocky trail that forces you to grow. I'm grateful for every lesson. These days I try to live in the present. I'm thankful for simple things: the sun on my face, the wine, the sound of birds, the chance to create and to care. I believe in kindness and in the ripple it can make. I know I'm small, but small things start waves. So I keep going with an open heart and a stubborn hope. I'll stumble and learn and keep faith with who I want to be. If my path helps even one person feel less alone, then none of it was in vain. A week later, the past didn't just knock, it climbed into the passenger seat. I was crawling along Sunset when a new pop track came on the radio, and under the glossy production, I heard it. Our old demo. My guitar line. Caitlin's hook, rearranged but unmistakable. I pulled over in front of a taco stand and just sat there, palm sweating on the wheel. I called the lawyer back, ready for a fight. He sighed and told me something I didn't expect. Caitlin had pushed the licensing through on the condition my name stayed on the song. "You've got royalties coming," he said. "You should also know she argued for a bigger share for you." The story I told myself about her leaving and forgetting cracked down the middle. I texted her for the first time in years. No long speech. Just, "I heard the song. Thank you." She replied an hour later. "Griffith, tomorrow, sunset." My stomach flipped. We met by the railings above the city. That watercolor hour when LA looks gentler than it really is. She looked older in the best way, edges softened, gaze steady. We did the small talk dance for a minute, then she cut through it. "One didn't leave because I stopped caring," she said. "I left because we were burning each other down. I kept the song alive because I wanted at least one good thing to survive us." I apologized, really apologized, without defending myself. She did the same. No dramatic embrace, no soundtrack swell, just two people finally telling the truth. She admitted she'd followed my mess from afar. The bar stints, the late bills, the disappearing acts. "I kept you on the contract because I knew one day you'd come up for air," she said. "I wanted something waiting for you when you did." We walked the loop in quiet, the city blinking on below us. I realized I didn't want to rewind time. I wanted to keep the lesson. When we reached the parking lot, she hugged me like an old friend. "Take the win," she smiled. "And don't waste it." I didn't. I cashed the first check and rented a tiny room behind a coffee shop in Echo Park. I started teaching 3 kids after school, cheap guitars, cheaper amps, big eyes. On Fridays we pushed the tables aside and played for whoever stuck around with a latte after closing. It wasn't fame, it was something better, a life I wasn't ashamed of. One night, after the kids had gone, I recorded a new song on a battered SM57. Not about Caitlin, not really about the part of me that wanted to set fires and the part that finally learned to carry water. I called it Westbound. I sent her the link with a thanks for the credits and the posh. She sent back a thumbs up and a line. "Proud of you. Keep going." Sometimes I still see her in a billboard, a streaming thumbnail, or even in person across a nosy room. We nod. That's enough. The old story, or one of us had to be the villain, doesn't fit anymore. If there's a moral, it's this. Sometimes the person you're sure abandoned you was quietly making sure you had a soft place to land. And sometimes closure isn't a door slamming, it's a window cracked open to let new air in. I'm not who I was in West Hollywood. I still mess up, still get restless, still outrun my own shadow. But at the end of the night, when I lock the shop and the street smells like jasmine and exhaust, I can hear a different song in the silence. Not an echo, something new. 2 weeks later, Westbound had 317 plays, most of them, I'm pretty sure, my students and the coffee shop regulars. Then I got an email with a subject line that didn't look like spam. Doc Short Music Inquiry. A film student from Highland Park had heard the track on a friend's story and wanted to license it for a graduation film. $800 and my name in the credits. I met him at a nosy bar on Figueroa, signed a 1-page contract, and used the money to fix the Civic's brakes and buy used Tascam. Practical miracles. Fridays at the shop turned into a tradition. Terrence lingered. Neighbors drifted in. Somebody always brought a box of conchas. I recorded the kids' live claps, mistakes, laughter called the little EP after hours. We printed 10 CDs for fun and they sold out at the counter next to the tip jar. I watched those three look at their names on a sleeve and felt something click back into place that I didn't know I'd lost. The court thing didn't vanish. Another subpoena. This time the questions cut closer. Money that went missing from that old project. Who signed what? I told the truth. The ex-manager glared at me in the hallway like I'd broken some code. Walking out into the heat on Hill Street, I felt shaky but clean. There's a strange relief in having nothing left to hide. That night almost got me. I stood outside a liquor store on Sunset with $10 in my fist and the old voice in my head telling me I deserved a break. I put the cash back in my pocket and Googled a meeting instead. Basement of a church in Koreatown. Bad coffee. Plastic chairs. I sat in the back and said nothing, just listened. When it ended, a guy my age bumped my shoulder and said, "You coming back?" I nodded before I could talk myself out of it. Caitlin texted me a week later. A photo from a mixing desk, faders up. My name highlighted on a cue sheet. Taper trails clean now. Thought you'd want to see. I typed thank you, and then, after a minute, "You ever need guitars cheap for a set of kids have got a room?" She sent back a heart and a noted. No flirting. No subtext. Just two adults who used to be a mess trying not to be. The first real stage back was an open mic at Hotel Caf. My hand shook so bad I almost dropped the pick. I played Westbound and a new one about not running red lights inside your own head. 20 people clapped. A woman by the door mouthed nice and I believed her. On the way out I didn't feel larger than life, I felt properly sized. The settlement from the sampled demo finally hit, nothing crazy, but enough to clear the last card and buy a small bulletin board for the shop. I pinned up a note. Free lessons Saturdays to spots. No questions asked. The first kid who signed up came with his grandma and a guitar missing 2 strings. We fixed it together with a pack he'd been saving. He grinned like it handed him the moon. Some nights I still climb to Griffith and look at the grid flicker on. I think about the version of me who measured worth in call sheets and followers. He wasn't evil, he was just loud and scared. Now I try to keep my life small enough to hear myself think. Rent paid. Calls returned. Songs finished. One afternoon, the doc student sent a link. My song under a shot of his dad washing a truck in the driveway. Water catching the sun. It fit. I cried at my own guitar line, which is embarrassing and also exactly who I am now. A former bandmate, Lena, walked into the coffee shop not long after, helmet under her arm, hair still blue. "Heard you were alive," she said. We laughed too hard and too long. We set a date to write, nothing heavy, just a morning with cheap mix and honest chords. We didn't talk about getting the group back together. We talked about breakfast burritos and key changes. If there's a twist to all this, it's that the big redemption moment never showed. No standing ovation, no Hollywood ending, just a series of small, stubborn choices that add up to a different life. I used to want the city to notice me. Now I'm busy noticing it. The jasmine by the bus stop, the way the light leans across the reservoir at 6 p.m., the cashier at the corner store who remembers my name. Sometimes, late, I'll get a ping. Caitlin posting a premiere pic, or a kid from the shop sending a voice memo of a new riff. I listen, smile, and set my alarm. Tomorrow, I'll tune 3 guitars, make a pot of coffee, and try to write 1 true verse before noon. It's not the dream I chased in West Hollywood. It's better. It's awake. A month later, the doc short with Westbound won a little campus festival and my inbox got weird in a good way. A small sync library sent over a non-exclusive deal. 10 pages of clauses about territories and perpetuity made my eyes cross, so I walked it to a legal clinic downtown. The volunteer attorney circled 2 lines, scratched out 1 in perpetuity, and told me to ask for a 3-year term with an opt-out. I did. They said yes. Grown-up me. 1. Old me. 0. The court thing finally wrapped. No handcuffs, no headlines, just a settlement and a stack of endas. Walking out into the white noon on Hill Street, I felt lighter in a way I didn't know was possible. I texted Caitlin a simple update and a photo of the kids' after-hour sleep. She sent back a confetti emoji and "proud of your crew." Fridays at the shop got crowded enough that the owner moved plants to make space. We called it Steam and Strings and put a coffee tin by the door for rent relief because the landlord announced a hike. Neighbor stuffed it with 5 cent change. A guy I only knew as Chessboard had dropped in 100 and refused to say his name. We raised enough to keep the lights on and buy 3 starter guitars. I labeled them with masking tape. Borrow me. 90 days sober came and went. I picked up a chip in that Koreatown basement and called my mom from the sidewalk. "I'm proud of you," she said. I believed her and didn't deflect it for once. Lena came back to write on a Tuesday. We kept it stupid simple. Kick, snare, tambourine, to acoustics. We wrote a song called Keep the Change, about tipping your future self. The kid sang a GAN vocal hey in the bridge so loud the espresso machine rattled. We uploaded it as a pay what you want and watch $5 receipts land like little birds. Caitlin stopped by one afternoon with a grocery bag of spare cables and a D-box. She set them on the counter, hugged the owner, waved at me, and left before anyone could make it awkward. Boundaries are a quiet miracle. A local DJ with a late-night slot put westbound between 2 much cooler songs and said my name right. The next morning a dad brought in a printout. "You're on the internet," he grinned, like had discovered a comet. Plays nudged up. It didn't change my life, but it changed my posture. Temptation still showed up like junk mail. After a long day, it stared to lawn at a bar's open door, or at an old contact's text promising quick placements. I learned to say, "In good, thanks," and then call someone who knew why that sentence mattered. One kid Diego asked if he'd come to his school talent show. Had been grinding on a blues in for weeks. I said yes, stood in the back of a multipurpose room that smelled like crayons, and watched him forget the second verse, panic, look over at me, and then smile and start again. He finished, bowed, and sprinted into his grandma's arms like had just landed a plane. On the drive home, I realized I hadn't thought about myself for an entire hour. The Sync library sent a brief, need a warm, hopeful track about starting over. Acoustic preferred. I wrote to Lane's East in a single sitting. No fireworks, just a steady engine. Lena added harmony. The kids clapped on 2 and 4. And I tracked it on a used Tascam in one take that felt honest. We delivered on time. A week later it ended up under a scene of 2 people repainting an apartment. Modest fee. I put half in savings and half into replacing the coffee shop's dying paw. Practical Miracles, Part 2. One night the owner slid me, spare key. "In case you need to work late," she said. I hung it on my belt loop like a talisman and tried not to cry. Caitlin sent a last message about the old project, final paperwork done. Royalties pipeline steady. Clean slate, she wrote. I typed thank you for keeping one good thing alive, and left it there. We don't follow each other. We don't need to. On a rare free Sunday I drove out past Pasadena and hiked until the traffic thinned to a hum. I sat on a sun-warmed rock, called my dad's old voicemail that my mom still pays for, and left a message I should have said years ago. I told him about the coffee shop, about the kids, about the song under the truck wash shot that made me cry. I told him I was trying to be the kind of man who returns calls and tools. Back in Echo Park, we planned a tiny showcase. The kids, me, Lena, and whoever else wanted 10 minutes. We printed handbills on the shop printer, crooked, charming. On the night, people packed in shoulder to shoulder, steam fogging the front windows. Diego played that blues in and nailed the verse. A woman whispered, he did it, like a prayer. I closed the night with Westbound, looked up mid-chorus, and saw a dozen faces I knew and a dozen I didn't, all keeping time on their knees or cups. No label rep lurking, no big break waiting in the wings. Just a room, just a song, just enough. If you're here for the X part of the story, this is where she lives now. In the credits that taught me how to share, in the cables on the shelf, in the part of my chest that doesn't flinch when I hear her name. The plot moved on. The lesson stayed. Tomorrow I'll tune those 3 borrow me guitars, make a pot of coffee, and try to write one more true verse before new. Not the life I bragged about in West Hollywood, the one I can look in the eye. By September the Santa Ynez showed up hot, impatient wind pushing leaves up Sunset like they were late for a bus. Ash from a far-off brush fire dusted the cars on Glendale Boulevard. We taped a paper sign on the door. If the wine takes it, bring it back. The kids still came. We propped the door open with an ant and taught over the rattle of box fans. Rent went up again. The owner gathered us after close, eyes on the floor. I hate this part, she said, and slid the new number across the counter. My stomach did that elevator drop and then leveled out. We'd done hard months before we could do them again. I texted the Steam and Strings group thread. Benefit night, pay what you can. No pressure. Someone added a flyer, a little guitar drawn with coffee stains, and by Friday the room was full. Chessboard hat showed up early and tuned chairs, which is not a thing, but felt like one. We passed a tin, told the truth, sang too loud. We made the month. Not a movie miracle. A neighborhood one. The Sync library sent another brief. Handmade. Hopeful. No cynicism. I laughed and wrote blue tape on the same battered SM57 lyrics about holding things together with what you have. Lena double-tracked a harmony so soft it felt like a secret. It landed under a montage of two roommates repainting a kitchen. The check paid for acoustic panels and a cracked window repair. I still flinched at the email's subject line. Checks used to mean trouble. 90 days became 180. I kept the chip in the pocket of my John jacket like a little stone. Meetings were uneventful in the best way. Bad coffee, worse donuts, the same stories told 1,000 different ways. The guy from the first night, his name's Evan, would text a single, "If I skipped." I answered with a selfie from the back row, his thumb up emoji coming in like a small bell. One Thursday I was closing up when a man I recognized even in shadow stopped in the doorway. Ex-manager. Same cologne. Grayer at the temples, smile like a business card. "You got a minute?" he asked. My chest tightened. I told him I had 5. He said he'd been cleaning things up, that court had been rough on everyone, and that he hoped there were no hard feelings. It was a professional apology, tidy. Safe. I said, "I wish you well," and didn't invite him in. When he left, I locked the door and stood there with my hand on the key until my breath slowed. Boundary held. The shop started to feel like a station more than a destination. Kids came early to do homework at the tiny corner table. Mom swapped recipes. A dog named Pico learned to nap through tambourine. We put a sign on the bulletin board. "Borrow me band free to low-cost instruments for kids who need them." A woman named Myra, who does grass for a living, overheard, scribbled her email, and said the magic words "fiscal sponsor." I googled it later, half understanding, wholeheartedly grateful. Caitlin sent a voice memo out of the blue, not a speech, just a voicemail-length riff about a guitar tone she loved on a live album and a link to a cheap pedal that gets close. "In case the kids want to play with textures," she said. I ordered 2 used ones. When the box arrived, Diego opened it like a treasure chest and dialed in a sound that made everyone's eyebrows go up. He named it Rain on Concrete, and that's what we call it now. A local community station asked if we'd come talk about Borrow Me. I said yes and immediately wanted to hide. Live radio is its own kind of stage fright. We went anyway, me, Lena, and 2 kids brave enough to read a sentence into a mic. The host wore headphones that looked like they survived the 70s and asked good questions. On air you can hear yourself swallow. I tried to talk slow. We played Keep the Change with the kids stomping and yelled hey into microphones older than all of us. That afternoon a woman walked in with 3 violin cases and said, "These have been in my closet for years." Make nose. I took a bus up to Dodger Stadium one Friday, not for the game, just for the fireworks. Sat on the hood of the Civic in a grocery store lot with 10 other people doing the same thing. When the sky cracked open, it felt less like celebration and more like permission. I drove home down Sunset with the windows down and the radio off and felt okay with the quiet. In October the marine layer came back with a mood. Gray mornings that made the reservoir look like a secret. I started running again, slow loops, knees complaining, lungs waking up. I'm not a runner, I'm a person who runs, sometimes. Half the time, I stopped to type a lyric in my phone that looked noble in the fog and dumb in daylight. One stuck. Don't outrun the red lights in your chest. It became a chorus. We did our first outside gig, a laundromat on Alvarado that hosts a Sunday swap. The owner moved to rows of washers. We set up with extension cords, and the kids played in front of a banner that said "Wash and Dry." People clapped between rinse and spin. A grandma I'd never met cried into a plastic chair and told me her husband played corridos when he was young. "I can hear him in the little one," she said, pointing at Diego. I nodded, surprised by how much I understood without words. I got an email from a college buddy I hadn't spoken to since the blow-up years. Had lost his brother. "I don't need advice," he wrote, "just a song." I sent him a rough take of Westbound and a voice memo of something new, called Hold Still. He replied with a heart and a photo of a driveway at dusk. "We were boys once who dreamed about festivals. We are men now who send each other silence when it's called for." The landlord announced they were considering options. We all know what that means. The owner and I looked at spreadsheets that made my head throb and then at the room we loved. Myra sat with us and said, You need a plan B and a plan C. Plan B was a pop-up version of Steam and strings that could migrate church basements, school cafeterias, parks. Plan C was a small storage unit for the instruments if the worst happened. We labeled plastic bins and wrote down phone numbers for free spaces on a piece of paper that felt like a will. It wasn't despair, it was preparation. Strangely, it calmed me. Thanksgiving came and went with paper plates on the counter and 6 kinds of pie. I don't know who brought the pecan, but I hope they run for office. The kids played Lean on Me, which is a click because it works. I watched a room full of people hum the same line and thought, this is the point. December did what December does. Too many obligations, not enough time. I learned how to say no, sometimes. Caitlin sent a photo from a set in Atlanta, jacket weather, smiles, a line of folding chairs under a tent. Our ad makes the best cocoa, she wrote. I sent back a picture of the coffee shop tree, which is actually a tall snake plant with lights. No needles, I said. She sent back perfection. That's our language now, small, kind, complete. On New Year's Eve I played in an early set at a friend's backyard thing in Highland Park and left before midnight on purpose. I stopped at the reservoir, leaned on the rail, and listened to fireworks pop like bubble wrap across the basin. I called Evan and he picked up on the first ring. We made it, he said. We did. I said back. January brought rain and leaks. We passed around towels and buckets like instruments. Between drips I wrote a bridge to Hold Still that finally felt right. Lena came in with a thermos and sang it once, perfectly, and we both stared at each other because it felt like an answer to a question neither of us could phrase. One afternoon a teacher from Diego's school came by, nervous, hat in hand. We lost our music budget, he said. Any chance you could do 8 weeks of after school, if we can't pay much? I looked at the spreadsheet and then at the Borrow Me board and said yes. We made a little rhythm circle with desks pushed back. The first day 3 kids drummed on tabletops with pencils and grinned like band leaders. Money's real, so are moments like that. The ex-manager sent a final email, a blanket sorry to ABCC list that included me by accident. I archived it without reading. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it's just not letting the old story drive. By spring the jacarandas blew up, purple confetti on the sidewalks. Diego outgrew rain on concrete and found a clean tremolo he called porch light. Our tiny feed of songs and videos looked like a scrapbook made by a neighborhood. Blue tape ended up under a commercial for a hardware store to hands fixing a wobbly chair, a kid climbing into it after. Practical Miracles, Part 3. Sometimes I still walk past the bars that used to know my name and feel the tut. I keep my phone heavy with numbers of people who pick up and say, walk it off. Call me at the corner. I do. I round the block. I breathe. The tug loosens. The city is full of exits. You learn your own. If you're reading this for a clue about what happened to the love story, it didn't vanish, it changed shape. Caitlin and I sent each other links and photos of cables and coffee. That's our version of keeping a good thing alive. If there's a future, it'll make its own case. I'm not auditioning for it anymore. The other night, closing up, I flipped the light and the room went dim except for the exit sign and the street glow at the door. In the quiet, I could hear the hum of the amp, the refrigerator, the city breathing through the gap under the threshold. I tuned the nearest guitar and the low E rang just right. I thought about my dad's voicemail and the promise I made on that hike, to be the kind of man who returns calls and tools. I locked the door, slid the key into my pocket, and walked home with my hands warm from strings. Tomorrow I'll make coffee, wipe the tables, and try to write one true verse before noon. Not because a label is waiting, because a room is, and because I am.